There's no point pretending otherwise, as you're just gonna mention it in the comments anyway, but I enjoy WWE. I like Raw, I actually think SmackDown right now is really good, and on a day-to-day basis someone tells me that I should be killed because of this. Seems a little bit extreme to me, but hey, what do I know? Throw me into a coffin now and be done with it. And also on my gravestone, it can just read, Simon Miller, he enjoyed Raw Underground. With that said, I do listen and hear everything that a lot of people tell me, and I can also understand the frustration, and there is a singular idea, and in this case a single day, that does sum up these thoughts and feelings, and it's one I thought we should discuss today. Just wanted to be honest and transparent, because being a hat is important. Anyway, in what could be somewhat of a new series when we get all editorial with wrestling, hence why I'm sat down, because you know that's different, we have set the table, and let's discuss the day Raw died, like I did a few minutes ago. I'm sure lots of people can point to specific issues where they felt like they needed a break from WWE TV, especially during this damn pandemic. I mean, Stone Cold Steve Austin was forced to interact with empty chairs. There was pretty much no fan noise whatsoever, which is always difficult because simply it's not what we're used to. But that can also be approached in a very different way. We all have a tale about how we first became a fan of the WWF or WWE. For me, it was when I first saw Bret Hart, but it could be Hulk Hogan, the Macho Man, the Ultimate Warrior, the aforementioned Rousemate, The Rock, John Cena. It could even be that old head shaker himself, D'Lo Brown. There's no rhyme or reason about how we get into this stuff, we just do. And on that note, given that D'Lo Brown has come up, the chest protector was great. I will die on that hill, and it upsets me when I say people saying otherwise. In many ways though, it was this nostalgia that has been controlling WWE's creative output for a while. And we've reached a time where every time you go back to that, you're going to get diminishing returns. For example, who else even is there to bring back right now? Goldberg has a couple of matches left on his deal, but that novelty has worn off. Novelty, I should say. Talk to him every day, he's my dad. Sting had his run, Austin, third time he's been brought up, but he's not coming back. The Rock is too big for wrestling. We've seen Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Edge, Christian. I mean, if you can think of anybody from the past, they've had some present run in WWE. And none of this is their fault, it's just how life works. But to tie it into the title of this video, it all kind of harks back to January 2018. And if you recall, this was the night where Raw celebrated its 25th anniversary, and the big selling point was that it was going to be littered with stars. I mean, we saw everyone from Harvey Whippleman to Terry Reynolds. If you had a niche favorite wrestler, they were likely here. Which is why it was doubly insulting that Repo Man wasn't. Continue to count the days, or I'll just be the modern version of Repo Man. However, none of these faces from the past were used in any real way. They were mostly part of backstage skits, sometimes not even given anything to say, and this is also true when Stone Cold Steve Austin, there he is again, did his madness with the McMahons. Now let's not pretend otherwise. I have watched that segment around about 100 times since then, and I love it to pieces, but that's not to say there aren't criticisms that can't be thrown in that direction. I mean, just go and watch the YouTube promo he cut afterwards that absolutely should have been on the show proper. It is the Bionic Redneck in all of his pomp and glory, and even he seems confused about why he wasn't allowed to do this on Raw. There's nothing compared to that other segment that featured one D-Generation X though. As a catch-up, the Revival, now the FTR, got the crap kicked out of them by DX because again, they were the cool folks from the past, and Cash and Dax or Dawson and Wilder were just some tag team that happened to be there. And these aren't my words either. These are the words from the teams themselves. They were outwardly upset about this because it simply wasn't building to the future, and that's the phrase of the day. And again, the evidence is there. Just go look on Twitter. It's always Twitter. And far be it from this show where WWE changed its direction or approach, it seemed like an episode that actually doubled down on it. As the TV ratings continue to ping about like a game of table tennis, the idea went from building stories and trying to engage the viewer to hitting them as hard as they could in the face with headlines and big words and hoping they would just tune in later and next week. Take a recent episode of Raw when the NFL returned in 2020 on Monday night. What do we get? We got a women's title match, Keith Lee versus Drew McIntyre, a cage match. That was done to try and appeal to that short-term strand in your brain that gets you excited right there and right then. What it doesn't do, however, is hook its claws in, because that takes time and weeks of TV. It just does. No one watches the first entry in a Netflix series and expects the greatest thing ever, and if you do, you're crazy. You're only going to disappoint yourselves. You have to set the scene and build characters and all of that depth. So within this desire to get an old fan back because they see Triple H or Shawn Michaels, WWE has lost its most important weapon, which of course is long-term storytelling. Be it the mega powers imploding, the rise of Steve Austin, CM Punk in 2011, Edge versus Orton, they all have this in common, as many more do that I haven't mentioned. And the fact that Vince McMahon's business model has shifted from live events and merchandise that fans controlled kinda to TV ratings, which is more in management's hands, well, it just underlines all of this. The other thing is that it works. Raw 25 did a 4.50 rating compared to the 1.8-ish it's doing today. And as Eric Bischoff said during an interview recently, where did those 3 million people go? They must still like wrestling on some level, but they are not engaged, to use fancy, swanky-dank 2020 language. And that doesn't happen even as good as Seth Rollins versus Dominic Mysterio throwing each other into some steel is. And they need to know why they should care and be offered slabs of potential about what's next. That is just how the entertainment industry works. You've got to reel them in like a fish. There's more to it as well, especially as after, in Vince's eyes, being burned by Dwayne Johnson, Batista, or Brock Lesnar, who all use their WWE-made star power to jump into other industries. That kind of scarred McMahon to the point he's not going to let it happen again. It meant larger-than-life characters were replaced by the 3 initials you'll see on the HQ building, hoping that those alone will be enough. It is to a certain extent, but again, compare the numbers. You can't argue with stats, or you can, but it's a waste of life. And just in case I lost you there, I am of course talking about WWE. That is bigger than anybody on their roster. But given that Sasha Banks versus Bayley not only did great ratings, but also has been universally beloved, that's just another reason why we should return to it ASAP. And hey, maybe something will change. Maybe something has to change, especially because the novelty of the Thunderdome has worn off. And if and when it does, I think it's going to be better all around. And we'll all just enjoy WWE more. Except for that one guy on Twitter and social media and Reddit. He doesn't like anything. He really, really doesn't. And he doesn't like me. And he doesn't like you. I don't really know what we're going to do to get through to him. But like, blow him a kiss. Why not? Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and make sure to let us know, what do you think the WWE has to do to suck these people back in to watching their program every single week? And like the video, share the video, smash the subscribe button, head over to whatculture.com where you can read articles like this, follow What Culture on Twitter at What Culture WWE, and you can watch more videos here on What Culture Wrestling, where sometimes the table isn't there. Should not have shaken it. Cheap ass table. My name is Simon from What Culture. Thank you for joining me as always, and if you want to see more content like this, you just have to let me know.